All right, in the third round, the Eagles select a defensive player, linebacker Davion Taylor out of Colorado, with such an interesting story. So much to like about this guy. We are about to break it down for you on Eagles Draft Central, presented by Dietz and Watson. Fran, this is a guy who you've gotten very familiar with throughout the entire pre-draft process, a guy who was at the Senior Bowl, so I know you have a lot to tell us about him. Let's get started with his story, his background. Quite a fascinating person.
Yeah, no question. I spent a good amount of time with him down in Mobile. Got to sit with him for a media day for about 10, 15, 20 minutes. And it was just a really good conversation. Came away really, really impressed with the kid. And then when you learn more about his story, he grew up, his mother was a Seventh-day Adventist. That was the religion they practiced. So Friday nights, they were off limits. He could not play high school football. He could not play in those games. So while he practiced with his high school team, he did not play any high school football games. He ran track. He played basketball. So he goes to junior college, walks onto the football team, runs track for the football team or for the junior college team. Walks on, starts the final 3 games of his freshman year, starts to get some offers from FBS programs, ends up going to Colorado, and ends up becoming a 2-year starter for them. This guy played in space for the Buffaloes team. Very, very impressive athlete. I remember talking with Jim Nagy right after the Senior Bowl. He's the executive director of the Senior Bowl. I said, Jim, who's the guy from this game that you feel is going to blow up the combine that people aren't talking about right now? And he immediately, before I even finished asking the question, he said Davion Taylor. And when you talk about his athletic background, his speed.
When you look at a guy like Davion Taylor, and with a guy of his size, his athleticism, that potential, that upside, how versatile could you see him being used in a Jim Schwartz defense?
Well, and listen, I don't think this is going to happen, Amy, but he's fast enough to play safety. I mean, he could play safety. Now, I think with his lack of experience, that's unlikely. Wouldn't be surprised at all if they have him match up on tight ends because of his speed, carry those guys down the seam. He can also play out in the slot. He did that at Colorado. Tremendous blitzer. He had 8.5 tackles for loss this year after 9 a year ago. And here's the key. Tied for the team lead with 7 pass breakups. It's a passing league. I mean, teams are throwing it 60, 65% of the time. You have to be able to cover. So to have a linebacker like Davion Taylor, who tied for the team lead in pass breakups, is a great sign. He might even start out as a nickel linebacker for the Eagles, just playing in coverage. Maybe play special teams and a specific role, but he has rare run and hit, seek and destroy ability. They don't have a guy with his raw physical ability. He immediately becomes the most explosive, fastest linebacker on the Philadelphia Eagles roster.
So, Fran, I know you're always watching the film and doing your tape study, and as the draft gets closer, you go deeper and deeper to evaluate these guys. When did Davion Taylor first come onto your radar, and what were your initial impressions of him?
Well, really, he came onto my radar in the fall. I'd heard that he was starting to get a little bit buzzed for the Senior Bowl, and at that point, I got a chance to watch him. And again, the first thing that stands out was how he was used. He was often used in space. He played to the passing strength. So you're playing out west, you're playing in the Pac-12. 3 receivers line up to the outside. That's the side Davion Taylor's going to line up on. So sometimes that put him in the slot, and he's playing as kind of an overhang defender, a quasi nickel safety, overhang Sam linebacker. That's kind of how he was used. So you're talking about a guy who's comfortable playing in space. He's got to make those run-pass keys from distance, and that does take some mental processing. So you like that from a Davion Taylor. And also, this is a guy that also showed the ability to play in the box. And I think when you look at his speed, he, as Ross mentioned, he has not played a ton of football, right? He has not played a ton of football, especially at the high level. So when you're talking about his instincts and his ability to play through contact, things like that, he's still finding his way in those areas. You can do that with reps. And so trying to watch Davion Taylor this summer, it's going to be a lot of fun, because this is a guy, I think, again, when you're talking about the ceiling of what he can be, he's going to show some flashes just like he did at Colorado. Really, really fun player with a very high upside.
All right, and as we wrap up day 2 of the draft for the Eagles, to summarize, we have 2 new offensive players, 1 new defensive player. Linebacker Davion Taylor wraps up the day for the Eagles. The theme across the board, speed and versatility and upside. Guys, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And of course, we will be back tomorrow, 30 minutes before the draft gets going, as always. So 11:30 tomorrow. It's an early start. We will be there for that with our pre-show as well, and of course, as always, live with instant analysis, instant reaction, as every single pick is made throughout the weekend. Later tonight, you can join us for the press conferences as the executives and coaches. Coach Doug Peterson will be breaking down their new selection as always, and Davion Taylor as well. All of that will be carried live here as well on PhiladelphiaEagles.com, our social media pages, and our official mobile app as well. All right, I think that's all the announcements I have for all of you. Thank you again to Dietz and Watson for all of the cheese that I will still be eating tomorrow, and we will see you tomorrow.